So you're here, I'm here, and we're here with Nelida Pennington, who is an experienced and creative certified internal family systems therapist. So she's worked in mental health in decades with personal counselling experience with IFS, sorry, and it's been a game changer for her understanding of the inner world of people. It gave her the motivation to train as a counsellor, hoping to facilitate this compassionate, relational, and holistic journey for others. So, her late diagnosis of ADHD influenced her master's thesis on the lived experience of adult women receiving a diagnosis of ADHD. And she's committed to providing neuro-affirming counselling for these individuals and groups. And I am so excited to have you here, Nelida, so I can pick your brains.
Kia ora, Katie. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a real privilege. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Mm.
So, can you share a bit about your journey in mental health and how it led you to become a therapist? And for those who don't know, what is an IFS therapist?
Sure, sure. So I stumbled into nursing and mental health, not able to continue physical nursing because of a neck injury, and found it very much to be my niche more than the time pressures of nursing in a general hospital. And um, so I worked in a community mental health service and have been working in mental health for 28 years this month, actually.
Wow.
So, and then I was starting at a new community service in 2018 and needed a new supervisor, clinical supervisor. And so I asked somebody, and they said, well, how would you like to have a bit of an exploratory journey with me in your supervision, based on internal family systems and that approach? And never heard of it. Thought, oh, yeah, let's go on an exploration. She was quite new to it as well. And it was like a whole new world.
Wow.
And having worked in mental health already then, for over 20 years, it was something very different. And I'd previously done a postgrad certificate in cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and some other sort of counselling papers, but this reframing just sat so well with me. It's having learned about internal family systems, or IFS, experientially. It was the perfect way to learn, actually, because it wasn't just a theoretical concept. It was having this experience that is so creative
Mm.
and compassionate, that it was, yeah, beautiful, deep, hard, but beautiful. And so my supervisor sort of encouraged me to come along to trainings, introductions, and then I launched into the level 1 training, then the level 2, um, and yeah, again, was so convinced of loving this way of working, the way people are viewed, so non-pathologically, there was
Mhm.
not pathologizing, it was people. And so she again convinced me to also do my master's at Massey, which seemed a bit ridiculous at my age. I turned 60 just before I finished my master's, and so it's been a big challenge, but yeah, it was. I thought, yeah, this is my jam. This is what I want to be doing. Yeah.
Wow. For you, what
Mm,
what because there may be a lot of people listening who don't understand what IFS
mm,
is.
mm, mm.
What how does it help somebody? How does it actually go in and help unpack it? Does it work a lot with trauma or what does
Mm.
yeah.
It's really trauma informed,
Mm,
because what we're looking at is this, our story. Our body holds our story, our parts hold our story. And so as we get to learn. Oh, so I'm talking about one of the assumptions of the IFS paradigm, which is that we are multiple. So
Mm,
we have many parts. I have a part that gets really angry. I have a part that is very moved by rom-coms.
mm,
I have a part that loves Netflix binging. I have a part that is really sensitive to being hurt. So all of these different parts that are within us, and when we start to greet them, when we start to meet them, start to hear their stories, how they show up in our body, very holistic. And I mean, one of the aims is for inner harmony. Once we start to understand there are all these parts,
mm.
and they often haven't known about each other, and they've
Wow.
all been siloed, trying to do their thing, hold their pain, do their jobs, whatever they are.
Mm,
And so this process is about starting to meet all of these parts. And the other main paradigm of IFS, very speaking in a very basic way, is that we all have an inner essence, a core, every person that is not broken.
mm,
It has been, never will be. It is complete, but it's been covered over
mm,
by all of our parts trying to do their things. And they've picked up roles, they've picked up trauma, often from when we were really little,
mm.
and they're trying to run the show. And
Wow.
this is it's almost a way of remembering, what is at our core. We don't need to build this core. It's not a let's get stronger at this, let's build this. It's actually about releasing what's already in here
Mm,
and remembering what's already in here, and for our parts to meet what's already in here.
mm. That's so
Because
beautiful. It's amazing, isn't it? Because all of us have these parts that we hide in
mm,
shame. That's my really big thing about mental health stigma. We hide in shame, and you're saying all these parts are valid. We need to bring them
yeah,
together. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I think that is just the beautiful thing is it is validating these parts.
Mm,
It is bringing curiosity, which um, Richard Schwartz is the person who kind of brought together the IFS principles. And a lot of them are really old principles that people have known, different groups, faiths, um, have known some of these ideas. Um, and so there is the very holistic approach of our bodies, these parts, and our essence, our spirituality. And um, I've lost what you asked.
no,
Um,
that's okay.
the
That's okay.
yeah, the non-pathologizing, the um, remembering. No, it'll come back if it
Yeah,
wasn't quite.
yeah.
But
Because
yeah.
it's interesting what you're saying. I did an interview with, she's an author in the United States called Bonnie Armstrong, and on multiple personality disorder,
Ah,
which was incredible. And she ended up in a wheelchair in her 50s all of a sudden, and nobody could find anything wrong with her until she went to a psychologist, and she
mm,
didn't use the IFS terminology, but she told me she had to get to know all of these
mm,
different parts of her personality. And so she would talk about her cohort, that
yeah,
it wasn't just
yeah,
Bonnie, it was the
yeah,
cohort.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a client, when we converse, we jokingly say, I say her name et al. Like
Yeah.
we're quoting, a number of people in an article. It's
Yeah.
this et al. And all your parts.
Yeah.
And it's come back. What I was going to say was with Richard Schwartz sort of collating this, he has 8 C's, the letter C, that describe the essence of our core. And
Mm.
It's things like calm and clarity and compassion and curiosity, those sorts of things. And when our parts are able to be met from that
Mm.
place, they can often soften and, oh, there's someone here,
Wow.
because they commonly think we're still really young. That's
Mm.
when they've picked up their extra responsibilities. And so they are still functioning from a really young place.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Is crazy one of the C's, Nelida?
crazy.
I think I've got a C. I've got that C.
Well, there's also five P's, and one of them is playfulness.
Okay.
So absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about, because I know a lot of the people listening
Mm.
have got ADHD or ADD,
Yeah.
right? And this is why I reached out to you. I'm fascinated. What made you investigate your own diagnosis of ADHD, and how did it actually, like when you were diagnosed, how did that change your life?
Mm. So remind me of the second part of that question if I forget to go there.
Yeah, I
So
will. Sorry,
my ADHD,
that's my ADHD overloading
working
way
memory.
too quick.
Yeah, working memory, that's the
Yeah.
challenge. So um, it was actually a slow dawning, I think. A really odd thing was I have a spiritual mentor, and she mentioned that she'd seen a link with people with ADHD and celiac disease, which I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's bizarre. And then my daughter was starting to wonder about things for herself. Oh, and I'm just needing to apologize. I didn't get her permission to say that. I was
Yeah.
going to say a family member. And then I was doing an art degree,
Mm,
and I was finding myself running up and down the stairs of the institute, and then also at my house, trying to find my cell phone,
right.
and just misplacing things, and this waste of time having to try and find things.
Mm,
And um, so I thought maybe this isn't normal. Maybe this isn't what many people experience.
mm,
And so I went to the ADHD New Zealand website, and they have a self-assessment tool. I
mm.
thought, oh, okay, well, I'll do that. And I did that assessment, and I got full marks.
Did you? Woohoo! Yes. Love to be
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was full marks at the time, because it said if you have more than four on these, it might be worth having an assessment. And I got six, and I didn't realize it was out of six at that time. I think
Yeah.
scoring might be slightly different now, but um, so that was really interesting. And then this is actually part of my research too, because from there, what? So I then started to look at assessments and how I could be assessed. And oh my gosh, there's nothing
Mm,
uh, unless you can pay $1,500.
yeah.
It's now more like $1,800
Mm,
for a psychologist assessment. And I um, I didn't know about some of the options there are about going directly to a psychiatrist, which you can do,
mm,
and it's cheaper, but it's a completely different process.
mm,
So um, and so it was going to cost a lot of money, but also the wait lists and
mm,
trying to find somebody who can do the assessment. Um, and some wait lists were only open for a window every 3 months. They'd open a wait list, and you've got to be really quick to get on it in that
mm,
window. And you didn't know exactly when it was going to be. And so, really unfriendly for an ADHD brain to have to
yeah.
go through the process. And also, many of the gatekeepers, like GPs, teachers, family members who will encourage a diagnosis process,
Mm,
um, are not uh, current, they don't hold current knowledge
yes.
about how ADHD presents in women.
Mm,
And so, but I'd gone into hyper focus, and I did find a psychologist in Christchurch who could see me, and we did assessments, um, and even doing that online assessment, which is actually something the psychologist recommended before you have an assessment. It was like, oh, that's ADHD. I
Yeah.
didn't know that was ADHD. I thought it was just really active, really
Yeah. Yeah.
busy bodies. And yeah, I just had a lot of ignorance about what the ADHD traits actually were. And so it was in getting the diagnosis, I had what's really common I see with my clients is there's the huge doubt. Maybe it's not ADHD,
Yeah.
maybe I am just a crap person.
Mm.
Um, and then once diagnosed, there was this, oh my gosh. And I read an article someone else had written where they described it as like being given a not guilty verdict for
Mm.
for all the things I'd struggled with.
Mm.
And this was really common in my research as well,
Mm.
that there was this, not an excuse. I've done some crappy things.
Mm. Mm.
And but a reason.
Mm.
And again, a finding of my research was commonly once we know what we're dealing with,
Mm.
okay, I've got this different brain. It is wired differently. And so then people were able to have a more hopeful approach
Mm.
rather than thinking, I'm so crap at this. Why can't I be on time? Why do I put things off that I know have to be done? You know,
Mm.
and all these blaming, shaming, and letting friends down, and people misjudging you because you do
Mm.
this or that, and not understanding what's actually happening in here.
Mm. And you see
And
it, like I went into my daughter's classroom the other day. She had a show and tell, and there
mm.
was a little boy in there. And the teacher said, "Oh, does anybody have any questions?" And the little boy turned around and he goes, "When can I get out of this prison?" And of course, my ADHD mouth, I just looked at this little kid. I was like,
Yeah.
rude. And then he looked around and looked at me and just shrugged his shoulders.
Mm.
And my heart just melted. I was like, oh
Yeah,
my God, like that kid
yeah,
has
yeah,
obviously got, well, what I would say from the work that I've done, has got ADHD, and he's just all the time, he's the bad kid. He's that kid.
yeah.
And so you
That's
grow
right.
up with the shame.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you think that you're a bad person because you procrastinate or,
Mm.
you know?
Mm.
Yeah. Sorry, Nelida, I
No,
kept,
no, no,
yeah.
no. But that's the other thing, actually, the blurting out,
Yeah.
and people, you're not being a nice, quiet woman,
Mm.
you're
Yes.
too assertive, you're too this, you're too, and so the masking of covering up,
Mm.
don't interrupt, don't, because of how we will be perceived. And it's lovely that so many of my immediate family have ADHD,
Mm.
and we can all just laugh together about the things we do,
Yeah.
and how it gets misinterpreted,
Mm.
and like that the interrupting is commonly, I'm scared I'm going to forget it if I don't say it now.
Yes.
It'll be gone,
Mm.
and it's really important.
Yeah, yeah. What other patterns have you seen in your research on women with ADHD? What are some of the patterns you've seen?
So patterns, are you meaning like traits
Yeah,
or?
traits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, some of the research there was, it is just that it's really common for people to feel like there's something essentially wrong with me.
Mm.
That
Mm.
was a really prominent theme, and um, that had really big impacts for mental health.
Mm.
The blaming, shaming, why do I do this? And the many messages that the people have received about not being right, not doing the right things, and then the if only I could get it together. That
Yeah.
was one of the quotes from a participant in the studies I collated in.
Mm.
And all the things, trying all the things, all the diaries, all the planners, all the
Yeah.
tools that, and everyone's, commonly people say, well, just do this. And you've tried to just do this.
Yeah, yeah. Because that's what I've seen with people, with friends and then
Yeah,
clients that have ADHD. They're such intelligent people and they've basically got a PhD
yeah,
on everything, and they're
yeah,
listening to the podcasts and the books and
yeah,
trying the diets and the supplements.
yeah,
Like it's a part
yeah.
of society, like we're actually really trying to be better.
Yes, yes, yes. And just missing the mark. And it's really common to have relationship challenges.
Mm,
So that's at every level. That might be at work, that might be your intimate relationships or with family and
mm,
with friends, because we might not do the social things that other people expect, especially of women.
mm, mm, mm.
So I remember laughing listening to an ADHD in Women podcast about the whole Christmas card culture.
Yeah.
I love receiving Christmas cards, but to try and get them out, and I've just let it go now.
Yeah.
Um, but it was just such a resonance. Yeah, I wanted to do all those things that women are meant to do, all these shoulds, and having a tidy house, such
Mm,
a, such a point of shame.
yeah.
It was so hard and continues to be a challenge.
I said to my little girl, we're all ADHD and the family. The boys are more ADD, but I was in bed with my daughter, and I'd asked her to put her clothes away, and I'd said pop them away in your drawers, and she just stuffed them all in her cupboard. And
Yeah,
I said to
yeah,
her, I said, you know what, when I was little, my mum used to tell me to clean my room, and I did exactly what you did. So I would
mm,
shove it all under the bed or in the
mm,
cupboard. So
mm,
as long as I was a good girl and nobody
yeah,
saw the mess,
yes, yeah,
it didn't. And I think
mm,
that that's probably was my theme song for a long time. As long as nobody
yeah,
could see the mess, it didn't matter that the rest of the mess was there, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that just takes me shiny thing to have you heard of Marie Kondo, who's all about the keeping your house in order, and
Oh,
if something brings you joy, if it doesn't bring you
oh
joy,
yes, I have heard of it. Yeah.
yeah. But actually, her drawers really works for me.
Oh, really?
So it's about folding up everything in a particular way. And it's might be why maybe I have a wee bit of autism as well.
Yeah. Me too,
But
I think.
yeah, the stacking of, and that's really not meant to be disrespectful of people who
Yeah.
are autistic,
Yeah.
but that that folding up my t-shirts so that I can see them all when you open the drawer, they're stacked, is so pleasing. You
Yeah.
know, that really works for me. It doesn't mean the rest of the room is tidy,
Mm.
but just particular ways of it feels efficient because I can open the drawer, I can see everything, and I'm not having to go like this to find
Yeah.
things.
But
Yeah,
what we were talking about before we started the interview, how Dr. Amen has classified the 7 different types of ADHD or
yeah,
ADD. And we were talking about the overfocused ADHD, which does have more of the autistic traits.
mm,
And I had another friend who she was, and well, she is an educator, and she was
mm,
her son. She specialised in ADHD, autism, and she was saying how closely they can sit together.
yeah.
And then also, if people have ADD or ADHD and they're medicated, sometimes that can bring out the autistic traits.
Ah, fascinating.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Some
yeah.
of my research talked about the 30% crossover of people
Okay. Yeah,
with
tell
both
tell me about
autism.
that, Nelida. We've
I
got the
don't know anything
script.
else about that.
Yeah,
All I know is that there's a 30% crossover of people who have both.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I have a Venn diagram that shows the similarities with ADHD, autism, and trauma
Mm, 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 mm.
and the overlaps.
Wow.
and what is unique and what is present in all kind of idea.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
it's really interesting. Like if you bring it back to the IFS therapy that you're
Mm,
talking about,
mm, mm,
if you as a child, and I'm thinking of my childhood, right,
mm,
and you're
mm,
constantly told that you're naughty,
mm,
um, that you
mm,
should be like other children, you're
mm,
this, you're that. So from that
mm,
internal family system, you've got this core of you that feels like you're not good
mm,
enough. And then
mm,
you develop all
mm.
these other people or the
Yeah.
L on
Yeah.
top of it, don't you, to try and cope and get love.
Yeah. That's exactly right. And yeah, so I have parts that I'm not good enough. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm basically bad, parts that believe that. And then in terms of there are different sorts of parts, categories in a sense with internal family systems. So there are these parts that hold pain, and
Mm,
they're commonly really young. So they've been activated, they've picked up their belief from when we were really little.
mm,
And and so as a response to those parts, because they're terrifying, we don't ever want to feel them, up
mm,
come our protective parts. And so like I have a couple of wee images here, or a couple of wee items here. Like this is I'm just holding up a tiny little wooden doll inside of a glass jar. And so in a sense, she's exposed,
mm,
seen, but she's separate as well.
mm,
And so what the IFS understanding is that we have these parts that hold pain and we try to put them away. We
mm,
try to shut them down. And they're titled in terms of Richard Schwartz, exiles. We're trying to push them away. And so in response to these ones that carry pain, we have protective parts that come up. So they are going to make sure either that these little young ones don't take us over
mm,
and we completely blend and feel like I am useless, I am unlovable,
mm,
I am, they're terrified that that's going to happen.
mm.
And so we get these protective parts that come in to try and make sure that doesn't happen. So
Yeah.
they will attack.
I like that one.
Some of them attack, or some of them will really plan preemptively. That's not
Yeah.
such a. So I'm holding up figurines here of a really violent looking little guy
Mm,
and a Wonder Woman
yeah, yeah, yeah.
image. So we have parts that proactively try to make sure we never feel these exiles.
Mm,
And so they will plan and do all the good things, be the good girl. They're really concerned about image, doing the right things.
mm,
They could be really critical because they want to make sure we always do the right things
mm.
and we never feel bad,
Yeah, wow.
rated, or
And
unlovable.
you can see, Nelida, I'm just thinking of my own journey with ADHD,
Mm,
that
mm.
that Wonder Woman, you can see why we all go into that, whether it's male or female, we go into that boom bust,
Yeah,
right? So we're
yeah,
doing
yeah,
amazing, we're focused, we're going a million miles an hour, and then it all falls
yeah,
apart, and we're that guy. We're that
yeah,
guy that's yelling at
yeah,
everybody.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so despite the best efforts of our proactive protectors, and
Mm,
Richard calls those our managers who run our life, they get us
mm,
up every day, they plan. We really need these parts, but they've often picked up extra burdens, and they want to make sure that our exiles are never felt
wow.
or never activated. So they're really proactive. And then despite their really hard work, sometimes somebody will say something, an
Mm,
event will happen, and one of our exiles gets activated. Woo! And so that's when, like, our second line of defense comes in, our
mm,
little angry ones. Um, I'm saying little just because I'm holding a little
mm.
figurine,
Yeah,
but they're not
they're not
little.
little.
I have an image here of like
Yeah.
a cartoon alligator, crocodile,
Mm.
whichever, that is just attacking.
Yeah.
And so these really reactive protectors are called our firefighters. And
Mm.
if you think of literal firefighters, their job is put out the fire.
Mm.
They don't care about water damage, broken doors. Their job is to put out fire and save people.
Mm.
So they're going to do whatever it takes to put out pain. So here comes like our rage. Here
Mm.
comes all of our addictions,
Mm.
whether it's porn or gambling or substances or chocolate
Mm.
or something I go to a lot is Netflix binging.
Mm.
So anything that's just going to put out the pain of whatever it is I'm
Mm.
facing. And so this beautifully non-pathologizing thing of understanding what our parts, their intentions,
Wow.
rather than seeing what they do and it's just damaging and we
Mm.
hate it, it's starting to bring these qualities of self curiosity.
Mm.
How is it that you learn to do this? What is your intention for me? And
Mm.
so, like my rage, I still remember the session I met my rage part and thinking, I hate it.
Mm.
I hate what this part does. It gets me into trouble when I say things that are nasty.
Mm.
Um, so it was actually other parts that hate rage. It's
Mm.
not myself. So Richard, yeah, coined this inner essence. He calls it our self with a capital S.
Yeah.
And so as I was able to start talking, which is the other kind of woo-woo thing you do in
Mm.
therapy, is you start talking, dialoguing with your parts,
Wow.
with curiosity to start hearing their story.
Mm.
And as I talk to my rage part of starting to understand their intent to protect me,
Mm.
there's some kind of exile they're really worried about, and they want to make sure I don't feel incompetent or shamed. And
Mm.
so they're going to do whatever it takes. And so when you see that their intent is to protect me, it's a complete reframe.
Wow.
It doesn't undo the damage
Mm.
that has been caused, but it starts a dialogue. It
Mm.
starts an understanding relationship of connecting with my parts.
Mm.
These parts are never going to go away.
Mm.
They're my internal family.
It
And
reminds me of, Caesar the dog whisperer.
yes,
Have you
yes,
seen that? And so I remember one of the episodes I watched, and there was a dog. This woman's dog was always aggressive to other dogs when she was walking it. And Caesar said it's because you aren't being the alpha, and the dog feels like it needs to protect you. And that's what this reminds me of.
exactly.
Yeah, it's not having that self or that understanding of self to protect, and then the protectors come in.
Yeah,
Is that? Yeah.
yeah. No, totally. And what's curious, it's such a family.
Mm.
There's all sorts of disagreements. So each of the parts have really distinct personalities and beliefs and ways of being,
Mm.
which is really helpful to know because sometimes we think I'm going crazy because there's this part of me that wants to do that and this part of me that wants to do the complete opposite. And it's just so helpful when you can see, so because they're different personalities
Yeah,
and
wow.
they have beliefs. And um, and alongside there, there's a lot of uh, not liking each other.
Mm.
So the managing parts who want us to look good and do well do not like our firefighter parts commonly.
Mm.
And our firefighter parts are like, we just want to play or whatever it
Yeah.
is. And so there are these really big internal battles, and they can almost be like an arms race where one gets stronger, so the other one gets stronger, so the other one gets stronger. And so it's key in the IFS process to be meeting with these parts from that self-essence,
Wow.
which doesn't have agenda other than to love and heal and to be with. So commonly there are, just when you use the word alpha, I thought of commonly there's a power over. It would be another part. So self doesn't need to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it was just that awareness. We often have parts that are actually taking a power over approach.
Wow. Yeah.
And they also need to be seen, validated for the hard work they're doing, the protective work they're doing from ourselves.
God.
And yeah, our parts work really hard for us.
Yeah, yeah. Do you,
And
having done so much research on ADHD, and then I assume you've worked with other clients as well, or do you just specialize in ADHD with your
I'm
clinic?
really, can I just say, are these pop-ups showing on the screen, Katie?
No, no,
Oh,
I
good.
can't
They're
see
just,
them.
I'm using my husband's computer and there are emails coming in and I'm thinking, oh, they're not all
No,
seen.
we can't see
Yeah,
any of them. I can let you screen share if you'd like to.
that's all good. That's all good.
Yeah,
So can you,
so if people are
mm,
with ADHD,
mm,
what benefit does the IFS system give them?
mm.
I did change my original question because
Yeah,
distracted.
yeah, no, but I'm remembering little bits of it, the original one too, around whether I only see people with ADHD. People who come to me don't know they have ADHD.
Right, right. Yeah.
Once I was diagnosed, I all of a sudden, oh my gosh, okay, these are the traits. I didn't know this. I
Mm,
didn't know this. And so the vast majority of people I see do have ADHD, and some are diagnosed,
mm,
and others, I just listen for anything neurospicy.
I love that word. I laughed
Yeah.
when I saw that on your question sheet, neurospicy.
And um, I think like this was why I chose this as my research topic was like, oh my God, is everybody who comes through my door neurodivergent? It
Mm,
is because I was seeing things and I was like, is this just my bias? Now that I know these things, I'm just seeing it everywhere.
mm,
Um, or is it that actually a lot of people who seek counselling have a neurodifference and they're not knowing how to work in the world?
wow.
I think there's a real research project in there,
Yeah.
actually quantitative, how
Mm,
many people are just different and they can't work in this world that doesn't allow for difference.
mm, mm, mm,
And in some of the research, that if someone's presenting with depression and anxiety, look deeper.
mm.
And as a student counsellor, I was given the easy clients of depression and anxiety. And I'm thinking, yeah, what am I going to see here? Might there be something else going on?
Yeah.
And um, and so, but learning also how and when to raise this as a possibility.
Mm,
So, because some people it's a real, whoa, I haven't got anything wrong with me.
mm,
It can have that because there's so much stigma. The
mm.
label isn't the problem, the stigma is the problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's
And
what I love. I really love about Dr. Amen's work as we spoke
mm,
when we started, because it's taken all the shame and stigma out of mental health for me,
yeah,
because
yeah,
it's a part of the brain and the
yeah,
brain can heal.
yeah, yeah.
Like with the IFS, like there's all these different modalities that we can actually heal. The diagnosis is great, but then the steps afterwards, like what are you doing to heal?
Mm,
You know?
mm. Yeah, I have curiosity about that. Because and my curiosity is like there's trauma, and
Mm,
obviously we want to heal that, but what are we healing from? And is that a pathologizing view of ADHD? Are we healing from something that's different? Does it need healing?
Oh, I
Is
love
it?
you. I love you, Nelida. Love you.
And I still have to be reminded of that myself because
Yeah.
it's been hard.
Mm-mm.
Commonly, as I'm running up and downstairs, I've bought a watch that helps
Mm.
me find my cell phone.
Yeah. Because I read a book years ago, and I did a lot of research on Patrick Holford, who's a nutritionist in the UK. And I've got a thing about a second longer toe, the Morton's toe. Can
Yeah.
And he found that it was an indicator for ADHD and autism, right? And that we process minerals differently. We tend to be
Mm,
boom, like
yeah.
rip shit and bust with
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
nutrients.
Yeah.
And then another book I read, which was I think it was the ADHD gene. I've probably butchered that title, but
Mm.
he was saying, we were the warriors, we were the mystics, we were the people, we were the travelers. And I try and explain that to my children. I said it's like we're the people that go, 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 and then we
Yeah.
kind of collapse, or we're the daydreamers that are thinking of inventions and so
Yeah.
what you're saying is it something we need to heal from?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And it was one of the things about doing research into a topic that is so dear to your heart.
Mm,
There's the pros and cons with that. The pros, as someone with ADHD, is you're invested in it and it's interesting.
yeah.
But the cons were reading so much about pathology of ADHD
Wow.
and how do we eliminate it? And
Mm,
it's like, oh my gosh,
mm,
there are people who think this is such that we want to eliminate it.
mm.
And then there were other projects, other articles that talked about, in an evolutionary sense, it's still here in our population. There must be a reason.
Yes.
And I find that fascinating.
Yeah.
And we love live comedy. And the amount of comedians we've been to, and they say, and I've just been diagnosed with, and I say to my husband, ADHD, ADHD.
Yeah.
And then one comedian said, and saying that as a comedian is like saying I have skin.
Yeah.
So common.
Mm, 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 mm.
And that we are needed. And it's harder maybe in our particular culture where it is so fast paced and
Yeah.
so much stimuli um, and expectations for consistent performance.
Mm.
We're not consistent performers. As you say, we go and then we stop.
Yeah.
And historically, we were the hunters, all about the project that
Mm.
was really both interesting and important to find food. And
Yeah.
then there's the booyah when we get the food. And then there's the, okay, now we need to stop and sleep.
Yeah.
And then there's another project again.
Mm.
And it's an interesting thing about what is our place in the world now.
Yeah.
There's comedians, but as you say, often entrepreneurial people. I'm always looking for neurospiciness with really high achievers.
Yes.
Um, and in whatever way. And then there's also people who are so disabled
Mm.
by the challenges and not having the right supports.
Mm. Mm. So
So
for you, Nelida, as we come to a close, what advice or message would you give to women out there who have an ADHD diagnosis? What are the words of wisdom from Nelida Pennington?
yeah, um, a really big finding in my research was the importance of finding our people.
Mm, mm.
And so to be with others who get us. And over the summer, a wonderful ADHD colleague and I ran a couple of retreat weekends. It was group therapy, really creative methods like psychodrama integrated with IFS, and for ADHD professionals. And the participants all said how much they loved the content and the fact that it was led by people who got them, and lots of laughter and tears together. But it was actually the shared experience
Mm.
and being able to unmask and to say that clock drives me crazy and that we all got it, some of
Yeah.
those things. And so there was huge healing with that.
Mm.
And and then to find your tools, your ways of working around. So for me, if I have appointments, I'll leave time so that I can snooze when I set alarms and
Yeah.
I snooze them and give myself, and some things I just continue snooze, like when I get up in the morning, snooze, have my shower, continuing to snooze
Mm.
until I'm at the thing I need to be at, because
Wow.
I'll get distracted
Mm.
and the alarm going again. Oh yeah, we're getting ready for this.
Yeah.
So I love that. I just found that out in the last year or so. And body doubling,
Mm.
this is really significant. And if I'm doing something with someone, man, all those procrastinated patterns of avoiding something that will take mental effort. So, like I do professional development with a couple of other people, so that I'm meeting with someone, I'm getting it
Mm.
done, I've bought this stuff, I want to use it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So body doubling, just a wonderful thing. And really that we're not broken
Mm.
and
Mm.
our children are not broken.
Mm.
ADHD is not a pathology. And are we okay to celebrate diversity in our world?
Yes.
Mm.
Yes, we are.
Mm.
Yeah, that is beautiful. Thank you so much for your time, Nelida. And I will pop all of your details into the show notes. So if anybody wants to reach out with you, then they've got your contact details there and they can do that.
Thank you so much, Katie. It's been really lovely to yarn about things I love yarning about.
We could have gone on for hours. You get two
We could.
ADHD women in a room.
Absolutely. Mm. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.